when I saw this woman hugging her dying dog, begging, "Please, my dog is dying. Can I work for medicine?" I had no idea I was about to witness the most shocking story I've ever documented. The Premium Veterinary Clinic was in total panic that October morning. Dr. Marcus Williams, director of the city's most expensive clinic, ran through the halls with his phone glued to his ear, sweat dripping down his forehead despite the air conditioning running at full blast. "What do you mean unknown viral outbreak?" he shouted into the phone. "We have 17 pets in critical condition. Golden retrievers, purebred Persians, even a championship Dalmatian. Their owners are influential people. If these animals die here, our reputation is destroyed." The clinic was the temple of luxury veterinary medicine. Italian marble floors, individually climate-controlled rooms, imported equipment that cost more than luxury cars. An exclusive clientele, celebrities, business people, politicians, people who paid fortunes to ensure their pets received royal treatment. But today, none of that mattered. Because a mysterious illness was killing the city's most pampered animals, and the best veterinarians had no idea what was happening. "Dr. Williams," shouted Dr. Sarachin, the clinic's head veterinarian, running toward him with a desperate expression. "We lost 2 more this morning. Senator Rodriguez's Shih Tzu and Judge Ferreira's Maine Coon. The owners are threatening to sue us." Dr. Williams felt the world collapsing. In 5 days, 7 animals had died with identical symptoms: high fever, seizures, multiple organ failure. All were healthy animals that came for routine checkups and deteriorated within hours. "Where are the specialists we called?" Dr. Rodriguez, the virologist, said he's never seen anything like it. "Dr. Martins from the university is running more tests, but it could take days to get results." "Days? Sarah, we have 10 hospitalized animals that could die at any moment. And 3 of them belong to people who could shut down our clinic with a single phone call." It was in this moment of total desperation that they heard a soft voice from the reception area. "Please, my dog is dying. Can I work for medicine?" Dr. Williams and Dr. Sarah ran to reception, where they found a heartbreaking scene. A woman about 35 years old, brown hair tied in a messy ponytail, clothes obviously worn for many days, was kneeling on the floor holding a caramel-colored mutt that could barely lift its head. "Please," she repeated, tears streaming down her face. "He's all I have. I can clean, organize, do anything. You just need to save Max." Amanda, the 22-year-old receptionist, looked at the scene uncomfortably. "Ma'am, this is a private clinic. We don't have social programs, and our treatments are very expensive." "I know I don't have money," the woman interrupted, her voice breaking. "But I can work. I'm a licensed veterinarian. I was a veterinarian. I can help with other animals in exchange for Max's treatment." Dr. Williams approached, studying the woman and the sick dog. The animal really did seem to be in critical condition: irregular breathing, dull eyes, clearly elevated body temperature. "Ma'am," he began. "Emma," she said quickly. "My name is Emma. Emma, this is a high-complexity clinic. Our cases require very specific specialization." "I know," Emma interrupted, looking directly into his eyes. "I recognize the symptoms of your hospitalized patients: neurological fever, progressive seizures, multiple organ failure. It's an artificially modified virus." Dr. Williams and Dr. Sarah exchanged shocked looks. "How could you know that just by?" Dr. Sarah began. "Because Max has exactly the same symptoms," Emma said, gently stroking the dog's head. "And because I've seen this virus before." The silence in reception was deafening. "Where have you seen this virus?" Dr. Williams asked, his voice growing more serious. Emma hesitated, looking at Max, who was panting in her arms. "In a laboratory where I worked 3 years ago." "What laboratory?" Gen Vet Research. They were developing viruses for. Emma stopped, as if deciding how much to reveal. For experimental vaccine testing. Dr. Sarah knelt beside Emma. Emma, are you saying this outbreak came from a laboratory? I'm saying I recognize the symptoms because I helped create the containment protocol for this specific virus. Dr. Williams felt a chill run down his spine. And you think the outbreak originated in this laboratory? Emma looked at him, and for a moment, Dr. Williams saw something in her eyes that made him understand this wasn't a casual conversation. Dr. Williams, how many of the affected animals had tests done at the clinic in the past 2 weeks? All of them. Why? And who supplies the clinic's blood test reagents? Dr. Williams felt his blood run cold. Gen Vet Research. They've been our suppliers for 5 years. But Emma, you can't be suggesting that. I'm not suggesting anything, Emma said, her voice growing firmer. I'm stating it. Someone intentionally contaminated the test reagents. And whoever did it knew exactly how I would react when Max got sick. What do you mean? Emma looked at Max, then back at Dr. Williams. I mean, this isn't a random outbreak. It's a trap. And I just walked right into it. At that moment, the clinic's automatic doors opened, and an elegant man in an expensive suit entered accompanied by 2 bodyguards. Emma looked at him and her face paled completely. Hello, Emma, the man said with a cold smile. I've missed you. Dr. Williams looked between Emma and the newcomer. Who are you? Dr. Richard Stone, the man introduced himself. CEO of Gen Vet Research. And Emma Taylor's former boss. Emma stood up slowly, still holding Max in her arms. You did this on purpose, Richard. Contaminated the reagents knowing I would appear when Max got sick. Of course I did, Richard smiled. You disappeared 3 years ago with very valuable information that belongs to me. And I knew the only way to lure you back would be to threaten the only thing you truly love. Emma tightened her hold on Max, feeling the dog's weak heartbeat against her ribs. You infected my dog to blackmail me? I infected your dog, all the animals in this clinic, and I'll infect 100 more if you don't return what you stole. Dr. Williams stepped between Richard and Emma. What are you talking about? What information? Emma didn't tell you, Richard laughed coldly. She stole 3 years of genetic research from my company. Modified viruses worth billions on the pharmaceutical market. I didn't steal anything, Emma shouted. I copied evidence of your illegal animal experiments. You were testing viruses on kidnapped pets. Stray pets, Richard corrected with disdain. No one would miss them. Dr. Sarah approached, recording the conversation on her phone. You're confessing crimes in my clinic? Dr. Chin, I suggest you stop recording and leave the room, one of Richard's bodyguards said threateningly. It was at that moment that the clinic doors opened again, and a young woman with golden hair entered with vibrant energy and eyes that seemed to contain stars. Excuse me, she said, her voice carrying natural authority. I'm Aurora Starling, from International Animal Protection. We received a report of animal abuse at this clinic. Richard frowned. We didn't call any animal protection organization. Aurora smiled, but it was a smile that made Dr. Williams think of storms forming. You didn't call. Emma did. Emma looked at Aurora confused. I didn't. You didn't need to call, Aurora said, approaching and gently stroking Max. When people like Richard cause unnecessary suffering to animals, we always appear. We? Richard asked suspiciously. Aurora pulled a golden credential from her pocket. International Animal Protection has federal authority to investigate crimes against animals. And Dr. Stone, you just confessed in front of witnesses that you intentionally infected animals. That credential could be fake, Richard said, but his voice sounded less confident. Want to test it? Aurora asked, her eyes shining with a light that made everyone in the room feel slightly intimidated. I can call my supervisor at the FBI and ask them to confirm my identity. Emma watched Aurora with fascination. There was something about this woman that conveyed power and protection, as if it were impossible for any harm to happen in her presence. Emma, Aurora said softly, may I examine Max? Emma extended the dog to Aurora, who held him with the care of someone who deeply understood animals. This isn't the virus Richard claims to have created, Aurora said after a few seconds examining Max. This is much more sophisticated. How can you know that? Richard asked. Aurora looked directly at him, and for a moment, Richard felt as if she could see through his soul. Because I've seen this virus before. In laboratories far more advanced than your little crime empire. Impossible. Richard, do you really think you're the only corrupt scientist in the world? Aurora laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. You're small compared to the pharmaceutical cartels I've taken down. Emma looked at Aurora with new understanding. You're not just from animal protection, are you? I'm many things, Emma. But today, I'm the person who will ensure Max is cured and Richard pays for all the crimes he's committed. Aurora turned to Dr. Williams. Doctor, I need you to evacuate all patients from this clinic immediately. This virus is much more dangerous than Richard admitted. How so? Because he didn't just infect domestic animals. He created a variation that can jump to humans. And if we don't act in the next 2 hours, we'll have an epidemic that could kill thousands of people. The silence in the clinic was total, except for Max's labored breathing in Emma's arms. Richard looked at Aurora with a mixture of fear and anger. Who the hell are you? Aurora smiled, and when she smiled, it seemed like entire constellations shone in her eyes. I'm someone who doesn't tolerate people who hurt innocents for money. And Richard, she approached him, you just hurt the wrong person. Richard instinctively recoiled when Aurora approached, as if some primal instinct warned him he was in the presence of something far beyond his comprehension. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice trembled slightly. There's no international animal protection with federal authority. Aurora tilted her head, as if considering the statement. Richard, in 20 years of running criminal laboratories, have you really never heard of us? Who are US? The people who show up when scientists like you forget that ethics aren't optional. Emma watched the interaction fascinated, still holding Max against her chest. There was something about Aurora that made her feel protected for the first time in years. Dr. Williams cleared his throat nervously. Aurora, you said this virus can infect humans? It can and will, Aurora replied, never taking her eyes off Richard. Richard, how many people work at the laboratory where you created this virus? I won't answer that. 42 people, Aurora said calmly. And all of them were exposed during development. 3 are already showing symptoms, but you don't know that because you abandoned the laboratory a week ago. Richard paled. How could you know that? Because unlike you, we monitor all activities of suspicious laboratories. Your laboratory has been on our list for 2 years. Dr. Sarah approached with a tablet. Dr. Williams, I just received a call from Central Hospital. They have 5 people hospitalized with unexplained neurological symptoms. High fever, seizures, they're the same symptoms as our animal patients. Aurora nodded gravely. It's begun. Richard, you have 30 minutes to provide the antidote, or dozens of people will die because of your greed. What antidote? Richard stammered. Don't waste my time pretending it doesn't exist, Aurora said, her voice carrying an authority that made even Richard's bodyguards step back. Every artificially created virus has a corresponding antidote. It's basic laboratory safety protocol. Emma stood up, still holding Max. Aurora, he's lying. Richard never created antidotes. He always said containment was the buyer's responsibility. Buyers? Dr. Williams repeated. You were selling viruses? Of course they were, Aurora answered for Richard. GenVet research is a front for commercial bioterrorism. They sell modified viruses to governments, cartels, anyone willing to pay. Richard tried one last gambit. You have no proof of anything. These are just accusations. Aurora smiled, and this time her smile made the room's temperature seem to drop a few degrees. Richard, do you really think I came here unprepared? She pulled a small device from her pocket. It looked like a phone but emitted a pulsating blue light. This device is broadcasting our conversation live to 17 international intelligence agencies. FBI, Interpol, Brazilian Federal Police. They all heard you confess to intentionally infecting animals and creating a virus capable of killing humans. Richard looked at the device with growing horror. You can't. Already did. And you know what else, Richard? Your own bodyguards are federal agents undercover. The two bodyguards pulled out badges and handcuffed Richard before he could react. Richard Stone, one said, you're under arrest for bioterrorism, negligent homicide, and crimes against animals. As they led Richard away in handcuffs, Aurora knelt beside Emma, who watched everything in a state of shock. Still processing Richard's sudden arrest. Emma, breathe, Aurora said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. I know it's a lot to process, but Max needs immediate treatment. Emma looked at Aurora with tears in her eyes. Are you real? Or am I hallucinating from desperation? Aurora smiled kindly. I'm very real. And Max will be fine, I promise. Dr. Williams approached, still trying to understand what he had just witnessed. Aurora, how did you know about Richard? How did you appear at the exact right moment? Dr. Williams, 3 years ago a brilliant veterinarian named Emma Taylor disappeared after trying to report illegal experiments. Since then, we've been monitoring Richard Stone, waiting for him to make a mistake that would allow us to arrest him. Emma lifted her head, surprised. You knew about me? Emma, you didn't disappear without leaving traces. You left evidence of all the work you did to expose GenVet. Evidence that has saved hundreds of animals over the years. But I failed, Emma said, her voice breaking. I couldn't stop him. Richard destroyed me, made me lose my license, my career. You didn't fail, Aurora said firmly. You planted the seeds that allowed us to arrest him today. And more importantly, you survived 3 years of persecution while keeping Max alive and safe. Dr. Sarah approached with a syringe and medications. Aurora, may I examine Max? If you're right about the virus, I need to start emergency protocols. Aurora carefully lifted Max, and Emma noticed how the dog immediately relaxed in her arms, as if instinctively sensing he was safe. Max was infected with a variation of the base virus, Aurora explained while Dr. Sarah examined the animal. But it wasn't just to blackmail Emma. It was to test cross-species transmission. What do you mean? Dr. Williams asked. Richard used Max as a guinea pig to verify if the virus could jump from animals to humans. Max is being used as a live incubator. Emma felt nauseous. So he didn't just infect Max to lure me, he turned my dog into a biological weapon? Exactly. And Emma, there's something else you need to know. What? Aurora gently stroked Max. This wasn't the first test. Richard has been infecting stray animals for months, testing different variations of the virus. Max was chosen because he knew you would do anything to save him. Dr. Sarah finished the examination and looked at Aurora with a grim expression. The prognosis isn't good. This virus is attacking his neurological system aggressively. Without specific treatment, he has maybe 6 hours. Emma panicked. But you arrested Richard. He must have the antidote. Richard doesn't have an antidote, Aurora said calmly. Because he didn't create this virus. Everyone looked at her in confusion. What do you mean? Dr. Williams asked. Richard stole this virus from another laboratory. A military laboratory that develops biological weapons. He doesn't know how to cure it because he never fully understood how it worked. Emma felt the world collapsing. So Max is going to die? After all this, there's no hope? Aurora looked at Emma with an expression that mixed determination and something that could be called magic. Emma, there is one person in this city who knows how to cure Max, someone who worked at the original military laboratory and helped develop both the virus and the antidote. Who? You. Emma stared open-mouthed. Me? Aurora, I never worked in a military laboratory. Not directly. But 3 years ago, when you discovered GenVet's experiments, you didn't just copy evidence. You hacked their systems and downloaded research they had stolen from other places. Aurora pulled a flash drive from her pocket. This drive contains all the files you downloaded that night, including antidote formulas you didn't even know you had copied. Emma looked at the flash drive as if it were a materialized miracle. How do you have this? Because I've been monitoring you for 3 years, Emma. Not to harm you, but to protect you. And to ensure that when the right moment came, you would have everything you needed to not only save Max, but to save thousands of other lives. Dr. Williams was trying to process the revelations. Aurora, who are you really? Aurora looked at him, and for a moment, her eyes shone with a light that didn't seem entirely human. I'm someone who appears when good people need help doing the right thing. And today, Emma, you're going to discover that you always had the power to save Max. You just needed someone to remind you of that. Emma held the flash drive with trembling hands. What if I don't know how to use this information? Then I'll teach you, Aurora said with a smile that seemed to contain all the wisdom in the universe. Because saving Max is just the beginning, Emma. You're about to discover that your destiny is much greater than you imagine. Emma followed Aurora to the clinic's laboratory with Max in her arms and the flash drive clutched tightly in her other hand. Dr. Williams and Dr. Sarah accompanied them, still trying to process the magnitude of what they were discovering. Aurora, Emma said as she turned on the laboratory computer, how did you really know about me? About the files I copied? Aurora positioned herself beside her, watching the screen load. Emma, there are people in this world whose only mission is to ensure truth defeats corruption. When you disappeared 3 years ago, you didn't disappear completely. You left digital footprints, evidence, a trail of integrity that people like me know how to follow. People like you? People who believe that when someone sacrifices everything to do the right thing, the universe conspires to give them a second chance. Emma inserted the flash drive, and hundreds of files appeared on the screen. Genetic codes, chemical formulas, experimental protocols, years of research she had downloaded in one desperate night. My God, Emma murmured, recognizing files she hadn't seen in years. I didn't even remember I had copied so much. Look for something called Project Lazarus, Aurora suggested. Emma typed the name and a file appeared on the screen. When she opened it, her eyes widened. Aurora, this is the complete formula for the universal antidote. For any of the Z-series viruses Richard was developing. Exactly. Dr. Sarah looked over Emma's shoulder. Do you understand these formulas? I do, Emma said, her confidence returning for the first time in years. I helped create the original safety protocols. If I have the base formula, I can adapt it for the specific virus that infected Max. Aurora gently stroked Max. How much time do you need? To synthesize the antidote? 2 hours, if this clinic has the basic compounds. Dr. Williams nodded vigorously. We have everything you need. Amanda, call our emergency supplier. As Emma began working, Aurora pulled Dr. Williams aside. Doctor, you need to understand something important. What's going to happen in the next few hours isn't just about saving Max. How so? Emma will cure Max, but in the process, she'll rediscover who she really is. And when that happens, she'll want to do much more than save a dog. What else? Aurora looked out the window, where ambulances were beginning to arrive at Central Hospital in the distance. She'll want to save everyone. 2 hours later, Emma was administering the first dose of the antidote to Max. Her hands moved with scientific precision, and Dr. Sarah watched admiringly as Emma worked with the confidence of someone born for it. How does it feel to be in a laboratory again? Aurora asked. Like coming home, Emma admitted. I forgot how good it felt to use my knowledge to save lives. Max opened his eyes for the first time in days, looking directly at Emma and weakly wagging his tail. Max, Emma cried, hugging the dog. You're getting better. Dr. Williams approached. Emma, the antidote worked. But Aurora said this virus can infect humans. Can you adapt the antidote? Emma looked at Aurora, who nodded encouragingly. I can. But I'll need more equipment and a team. You'll have everything you need, Dr. Williams promised. And Emma, Aurora added, you'll need courage to face what's coming. What's coming? Aurora pointed to Dr. Williams's phone, which was ringing insistently. Answer it. I bet it's bad news about Central Hospital. Dr. Williams answered, and his expression changed to absolute horror. Emma, he said when he hung up, 15 more people have arrived at the hospital with symptoms. And 3 children. Emma closed her eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility. Aurora, if I do this, if I cure all these people, I'll be exposing myself publicly again. And are you afraid of that? I'm terrified. 3 years ago, when I tried to do the right thing, I lost everything. I don't know if I'm strong enough to risk everything again. Aurora took Emma's hands in hers. Emma, 3 years ago you were one person trying to fight alone against the corrupt system. Today, you have allies, evidence, and the antidote that can save lives. What if they fail me again? Then they failed the wrong person. Aurora smiled, and Emma felt a strange, comforting energy flowing through her touch. Because this time, you're not alone. And this time, we'll make sure all the truth comes to light. Emma looked at Max, who was now sitting alert in her arms, then at the files on the computer screen containing the cure for a potential epidemic. Aurora, who are you really? Aurora stood up, and for a moment, she seemed to shine with her own light. I'm someone who appears when the universe needs the scales of justice to be balanced. And Emma, your time to balance those scales has just arrived. 3 hours later, Emma was in the central laboratory of General Hospital, surrounded by an emergency team that Dr. Williams had assembled. Max rested on an improvised bed beside her, fully recovered and serving as living proof that the antidote worked. Dr. Emma, said Dr. Patricia Lemos, the hospital's head infectious disease specialist, we've identified the virus in all patients' blood. It's exactly the same one that infected the animals. How many confirmed cases now? Emma asked, preparing doses of the antidote. 23 adults, 7 children. And the numbers are growing every hour. Emma worked with surgical precision, adapting the base formula for human metabolism. Her hands moved with the confidence of someone who had rediscovered their true calling. Aurora watched from the corner of the room, discreetly coordinating with federal agencies through her special device. Emma, Aurora said, I need to tell you something important about Richard. What now? He didn't act alone. GenVet Research is part of an international network of laboratories that sell viruses as weapons. When you reported Richard 3 years ago, you threatened a much larger operation. Emma stopped working. How much larger? Laboratories in 12 countries, sales to terrorist groups, corrupt governments, drug cartels. What you discovered at GenVet was just the tip of the iceberg. Dr. Williams approached. Aurora, does this mean Emma is still in danger? Was. Until today. Why until today? Aurora smiled, and Emma noticed that when she smiled, it seemed like stars danced in her eyes. Because today Emma is no longer an isolated whistleblower with a flash drive of evidence. Today she's the only person in the world who can cure an epidemic they themselves created. I don't understand. Emma, when you save these 30 lives, when you prove you can neutralize any virus they create, you become too valuable to eliminate. You become the person they need to keep alive. Emma processed this information while preparing the 10th dose of the antidote. Are you saying that saving these people protects me from the network? I'm saying that saving these people transforms you from a threat into an indispensable asset. Dr. Patricia returned running with more updates. Emma, the antidote is working perfectly. The first 3 patients who received treatment are already showing significant improvement. Emma felt a wave of relief. And the children? Responding even better than the adults. It seems the antidote is more effective in younger organisms. Aurora approached Emma. How does it feel to be a hero again? Terrified and exhilarated at the same time, Emma admitted. I forgot how good it felt to use my knowledge for something greater than survival. Emma, may I ask a personal question? Of course. What do you want most? Beyond Max being okay? Emma thought about the question while preparing more doses. I want no other animal to go through what Max went through. I want no other scientist to be destroyed for trying to do the right thing. What if I told you you could have exactly that? Emma looked at Aurora with curiosity. How? The federal government wants to offer you the directorship of a new veterinary biodefense department. Unlimited budget, international team, state-of-the-art laboratories. They'd offer that to someone who lost their medical license. They'd offer it to the woman who saved 30 lives and exposed an international bioterrorism network. Emma placed the last dose of the antidote on a tray. Aurora, why do I feel like you know more about my future than I do? Aurora laughed, and the sound made Emma think of wind chimes touched by a celestial breeze. Because sometimes, Emma, the universe sends people to ensure important destinies are fulfilled. And your destiny was never to live on the streets with Max. Your destiny was always to protect the world from people like Richard. And you? What's your destiny? Aurora looked out the window, where the afternoon sun created golden patterns in the laboratory. My destiny is to ensure that people like you never give up on doing the right thing. Even when it costs everything. At that moment, Dr. Williams received a call that would change everything. Emma, he said when he hung up, they just arrested 15 people from Richard's network. And they found something in the main laboratory that you need to see. What did they find? A list with names of veterinarians they plan to eliminate. Your name was at the top of the list. Emma looked at Aurora, who nodded gravely. That's why Max was infected, Aurora explained. It wasn't just blackmail. It was to force you out of hiding so they could find you. But you arrived before them, Emma said, understanding. I arrived exactly when I was supposed to arrive. Emma hugged Max, who was now completely alert and licking her face. Aurora, thank you. For everything. For appearing, for protecting me, for reminding me of who I really am. Emma, don't thank me yet. Because what we did today is just the beginning. Beginning of what? Aurora smiled, and this time Emma was certain she saw entire constellations reflected in her eyes. Of the day when Emma Taylor stops being a victim and becomes the guardian she was always meant to be. 1 week after Richard Stone's arrest and that of his network, Emma stood in the country's most advanced biodefense laboratory, watching Max play in the special garden they had built for him next to the scientific complex. "I still can't believe this is real," Emma said to Aurora, who was beside her reviewing plans for the new department. "What's harder to believe? That you saved 30 lives, or that the government offered you a $100 million laboratory? That you appeared at the exact moment when I needed it most. As if the universe had sent a guardian angel." Aurora smiled mysteriously. Perhaps it did. Dr. Williams joined them, carrying a folder with official documents. "Emma, the final authorizations have arrived. You are officially the National Director of Veterinary Biodefense. Congratulations." Emma took the documents, still feeling as if she were dreaming. "Dr. Williams, may I make a request?" "Anything. I want Dr. Sarah to be my deputy director. And I want to hire all the veterinarians persecuted by Richard's network." "How many people is that?" Aurora consulted her device. 47 veterinarians in 14 countries. All have stories similar to Emma's. They tried to report irregularities and were professionally destroyed. "Done," Dr. Williams said without hesitation. "The budget can accommodate an international team." Emma knelt to pet Max, who ran to her with full energy, completely cured. "Max, you saved my life, you know," she whispered in the dog's ear. "If you hadn't gotten sick, I would never have found the courage to return." Max licked her face as if he understood every word. "Emma," Aurora said, "there's something I need to show you before I leave." "You're leaving?" Emma felt sudden panic. "But I thought you would stay to help me set up the department." "You don't need me for that. You have an excellent team and the government's confidence. But there's another person who needs my help now." Aurora showed a photo on her device. It was a young engineer holding a sick cat. Marina, in Barcelona, discovered that her pharmaceutical company is testing experimental drugs on stray animals. When she tried to report it, they threatened to kill her cat. Emma looked at the photo, seeing her own story reflected in the young woman's desperate eyes. "Are you going to save her like you saved me?" "I am. But Emma, this time you can help me." "How?" Aurora smiled. "Your new department has international jurisdiction. Marina will need scientific asylum and federal protection. You can give that to her." Emma nodded without hesitation. "Of course. How many people like Marina are there?" "Hundreds. Scattered around the world, hiding, afraid, carrying evidence that could save millions of lives if someone gave them a chance. And you want me to? I want you to turn your department into a refuge for courageous scientists. A place where doing the right thing is protected, not punished." Emma looked at the laboratory around her, then at Max playing in the garden, then at Aurora, who seemed to glow softly in the afternoon light. "Aurora, can I ask you something? Who are you really? And don't tell me you're just from International Animal Protection." Aurora went to the window and looked at the sky, where the first stars of the night were beginning to appear. "Emma, do you believe that some people are sent to change the world? After what happened this week?" "I believe anything." "Then believe this. There are forces in the universe that ensure people like you, people willing to sacrifice everything for the truth, never fight alone." Aurora turned to Emma, and for a moment, Emma was certain she saw entire galaxies spinning in her eyes. "When you need me again, I'll be there. It might not be in the way you expect, it might not be at the time you plan, but I'll be there." "How will I know it's you?" Aurora approached and hugged Emma gently. "Because whenever someone appears to help you at the most impossible moment, when you most need protection or guidance, a part of me will be present." When Aurora left the laboratory, Emma watched through the window until she disappeared into the distance. There was something about that woman that defied logical explanation, as if she were more than human. Dr. Sarah approached. "Emma, Are you sure she was real? Emma looked at Max, completely cured, then at the 30 patients who had recovered thanks to the antidote she created, then at the state-of-the-art laboratory she now directed. She was real, Emma said with certainty. And I suspect I'll meet her again when I least expect it. That night, Emma slept in her new government-provided home, with Max curled at her feet, dreaming about the future for the first time in 3 years. And somewhere in the city, Aurora watched the stars, knowing her mission there was complete, but that many other people around the world still needed to discover they had the power to change everything. The simple woman who had asked to work for medicine had become the guardian of national biodefense. And all because someone believed she deserved a second chance to be a hero. 6 months later, Emma stood at the podium of the World Biodefense Conference in Washington, facing an audience of 2,000 scientists, government representatives, and animal rights activists from 80 countries. Max sat beside her on stage, wearing a special golden collar identifying him as First Biodefense Dog, a title created specifically for him by the U.S. Senate. 8 months ago, Emma began, her voice echoing through the auditorium. I was a homeless woman asking to work in exchange for medicine for my dog. Today, I lead the world's largest veterinary biodefense program. A murmur of admiration swept through the audience. This transformation didn't happen because I was special. It happened because decent people gave me a second chance when I needed it most. In the front row, Dr. Williams and Dr. Sarah watched with pride the complete transformation of the woman they had met in despair. In the past 6 months, Emma continued, my department has identified and neutralized 17 criminal laboratories in 9 countries. We've saved over 3,000 animals from illegal experiments and prevented 4 potential epidemics. The audience applauded, but Emma raised her hand asking for silence. But I want to talk about something more important than statistics. I want to talk about the people who made all this possible. Emma pointed to a special section of the auditorium where 47 veterinarians of different nationalities were seated, all the professionals who had been persecuted by Richard's network and now worked in her department. Each of these people lost everything for trying to do the right thing. Careers destroyed, reputations ruined, families separated. But they never gave up on the truth. Emma paused, looking at Max, who wagged his tail as if understanding the importance of the moment. And I want to talk about someone very special who appeared at the most critical moment. Emma scanned the audience, looking for golden hair and eyes that shone like stars, but couldn't find Aurora anywhere. A woman named Aurora Starling appeared at the clinic when all seemed lost. She not only helped me save Max, but gave me the courage to rediscover who I really was. Dr. Williams whispered to Dr. Sarah, have you seen Aurora since that day? No. It's as if she disappeared into thin air. I tried looking up International Animal Protection, Dr. Sarah whispered back. The organization doesn't exist. Aurora, Emma said into the microphone, I know you're listening somehow. Thank you for teaching me that competence without compassion is empty, but competence with purpose can save the world. At that moment, a child in the audience raised her hand. Dr. Emma, can I ask a question? Of course, sweetie. My dog is sick. Can you help? Emma smiled, remembering herself 8 months ago, desperate and begging for help. What's your dog's name? Luna. She has cancer, and the veterinarians said there's no cure. Emma stepped down from the podium and knelt to the girl's height. What's your name? Sophia. I'm 9 years old. Sophia, my department has a special program for cases like Luna's. Not just free treatment, but access to the most advanced treatments in the world. Sophia's eyes lit up. Really? Will Luna get better? We'll do everything possible. Because animals like Luna and Max teach us about unconditional love. And people who love their animals like that deserve all the help we can give. When Emma returned to the podium, she found something that made her stop mid-step. On the podium was a golden rose, not a painted rose, but a rose that seemed made of liquid gold and starlight. There was no card, no explanation. But Emma immediately knew who had left it. "It seems Aurora approves," she said into the microphone, holding the impossible rose. The audience laughed, but Emma knew Aurora was truly nearby, somehow, ensuring everything worked out. To conclude, Emma said, "I want everyone to remember, no matter how impossible your situation seems, no matter how many people say you can't make a difference, if you have competence and compassion, you can change the world. And if you have an animal you love unconditionally," she added, petting Max, "you can be sure you're never truly alone." The ovation was deafening, but Emma was paying attention to something else. For a moment, among the people standing and applauding, she was certain she had seen a familiar figure with golden hair waving to her from the back of the auditorium. When she looked again, the figure had disappeared. But the golden rose in her hands remained real, warm, and slightly glowing, as if containing starlight. Emma smiled, finally understanding that some people enter our lives not to stay, but to remind us of who we really are. And sometimes, that's more valuable than any permanent presence. 2 years after the conference in Washington, Emma was in her biodefense laboratory making the call that would change her life forever. Dr. Emma Taylor to International Emergency Control. "We have a critical situation." "Dr. Taylor, this is who Operations Center." "What's the nature of the emergency?" Emma looked at the data on the screen before her, numbers that made her stomach churn. "We've detected simultaneous release of biological agents in 17 countries. All have genetic signatures similar to the viruses from the network we took down 2 years ago. How many lives are at risk?" "Potentially, millions." Max was lying at Emma's feet but suddenly raised his head and began growling softly while looking at the laboratory door. "Max? What is it, boy?" The door opened and Dr. Sarah rushed in, with an expression of total panic. "Emma, I just got a call from the federal prison. Richard Stone escaped 3 hours ago." Emma felt her blood run cold. "How is that possible?" "He was in maximum security." "We don't know." "But Emma," Dr. Sarah hesitated, "there's worse. 15 of the other prisoners from the network also escaped. Simultaneously. From different prisons." "Simultaneously," Emma repeated, the weight of the implications hitting her like a punch. "Sarah, this wasn't an escape. This was a coordinated rescue." Max continued growling, now more agitated, as if sensing a danger the humans couldn't yet perceive. "Emma, there's something else," Dr. Sarah said. "They found a message left in Richard's cell. Addressed to you." Emma took the paper Dr. Sarah handed her. The message was written in the elegant handwriting she remembered from the reports Richard used to sign. "Emma, you destroyed my life, my company, my reputation. Now I will destroy everything you built. Starting with Max. This time, there will be no antidote. This time, there will be no Aurora to save you. R.S." Emma felt her hands trembling. "He knows about Aurora. How is that possible?" "I don't know," but Emma looked at Max, who was now clearly agitated, pacing in circles. "Max is sensing something. Sarah, I need to evacuate the laboratory. Now." "Why?" "Because if Richard managed to escape with military coordination, he has resources we underestimated." And if he mentioned Max specifically, Emma didn't finish the sentence, but began shutting down critical equipment. At that moment, the laboratory lights flickered and the ventilation system made a strange noise. Max began barking desperately. "Gas," Emma shouted. "He's pumping something through the air system." They ran to the emergency exit, but the door was electronically locked. "Security system has been hacked," Dr. Sarah said, trying to force the door. We're trapped. Emma held Max in her arms, feeling the dog trembling with fear. Richard wants me to watch Max die before I die too. The lights went out completely, leaving only the red emergency light flashing. Emma Taylor, a voice echoed through the laboratory speakers. 3 years ago you ruined my life. Today I ruin yours. Emma immediately recognized Richard's voice. You have 5 minutes before the gas reaches lethal concentration. Enough time for Emma to watch her precious Max die, and reflect on the consequences of challenging people more powerful than her. Emma hugged Max tighter, tears streaming down her face. Max, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for putting you in this situation again. Dr. Sarah desperately tried to call emergency services, but the signal was blocked. Emma, we can't contact the outside. It was at that moment that something impossible happened. The red emergency light began to glow with increasing intensity, but the color gradually changed from red to gold. And within that golden light, a familiar silhouette began to form. Aurora, Emma whispered, barely believing what she was seeing. Aurora appeared in the light as if materialized from the energy itself, her golden hair shining and her eyes containing storms of stars. Emma, Aurora said, her voice echoing with power that seemed to come from another world. Did you really think I would let Richard hurt you? How are you here? Aurora smiled, and when she smiled, the temperature in the laboratory seemed to return to normal. Because I promised I would always be there when you needed me. And Emma, Aurora extended her hand. The time has come for you to discover that you are much more powerful than you imagine. Aurora extended her hand to Emma, and when their hands touched, something extraordinary happened. The laboratory filled with a golden light that instantly neutralized the toxic gas Richard had released. How did you do that? Emma asked, still holding Max, who was now calm in her arms. Emma, do you want the answer that makes sense, or do you want the truth? Aurora asked, her eyes shining with that familiar light. The truth. Aurora took a deep breath. I'm not exactly human. I'm something that appears when the universe needs the scales of justice to be restored. Dr. Sarah stared open-mouthed at Aurora. You are what? I'm a guardian. I appear in moments of crisis to ensure that people like Emma, people willing to sacrifice everything for truth, have the tools they need to win. Aurora walked to the laboratory's central computer. But Emma, this time you don't need me to solve everything. This time, you have the power to end Richard forever. How? Aurora typed commands that made the screen glow with impossible information. While Richard was in prison, his network continued operating. And they made a fatal mistake. What mistake? They documented everything. Every sale, every experiment, every death. Thinking Richard would return to lead, they kept complete records of 3 years of crimes. Emma approached the screen, seeing terabytes of evidence appearing. Aurora, it's everything you need to destroy not just Richard, but the entire international network. Forever. Dr. Sarah looked at the data with admiration. How did you get access to this? Aurora smiled mysteriously. Let's say I have special resources. At that moment, Richard's voice echoed through the speakers again. Aurora Starling, I knew you would appear. But this time I'm prepared. Aurora looked at the ceiling with an amused expression. Richard, do you really think you can intimidate me? I have 50 men surrounding this building, all armed with aerosolized viruses that can kill thousands in minutes. And I have something better, Aurora replied calmly. What? Aurora looked at Emma. I have Emma Taylor. And she's about to discover that she's the most dangerous person on this planet for people like you. Emma frowned. Aurora, I don't understand. Emma, do you remember the Lazarus project we found on the flash drive? I remember. It was the universal antidote. It wasn't just an antidote. It was something much more powerful. Aurora touched the screen, and new files appeared. You helped create the first universal preventive vaccine against bioweapons. A vaccine that can protect anyone against any artificially modified virus. Emma looked at the data with growing understanding. It means you can make the entire bioterrorism industry obsolete. With a single injection, anyone becomes immune to any virus that laboratories like Richard's can create. Dr. Sarah approached. Emma, if this is true, Emma completed, people like Richard become completely useless. They can no longer blackmail governments, cartels, terrorists, because no one needs to buy viruses when universal protection exists. Aurora nodded. Exactly. And Emma, you're the only person in the world who understands how to produce this vaccine. But I would need laboratories, resources, international approval. Which you already have, Aurora said, pointing to the official documents on Emma's desk. As National Director of Biodefense, you have authority to implement global emergency protocols. Emma looked at Max, who was watching everything with the typical intelligence of dogs who have been through extreme situations with their owners. Max, what do you think? Should we end people like Richard forever? Max barked once, as if saying, yes. Aurora laughed. I think Max approves. Richard's voice returned to the speakers, but this time it sounded less confident. Emma, you have 10 minutes to leave the building alone, or I initiate biological attack on the entire city. Aurora looked at Emma. Want to know something interesting about Richard? What? He's bluffing. He doesn't have men surrounding the building. He doesn't have aerosolized viruses. He's alone in a stolen van 3 blocks from here, trying to appear more powerful than he really is. How do you know? Aurora smiled, and this time Emma clearly saw constellations spinning in her eyes. Because I can see much more than normal human eyes can see. Emma felt a strange calm settling in. Aurora, will you help me end him? No, Emma. This time, you'll end him alone. Because the time has come for you to discover that you never needed me to be a heroine. Aurora walked to the laboratory window. Emma, look outside. Emma looked and saw something that made her smile for the first time in days. 50 federal police vehicles surrounded the building, not to arrest her, but to protect her. How did they know? Because I sent the evidence to all competent authorities 2 hours ago. Richard is alone, surrounded, and out of options. Emma hugged Max tighter. So it's over? For Richard? Yes. For you? It's just beginning. What do you mean? Aurora turned to Emma one last time, and her presence seemed to fill the entire laboratory with golden light. It means that the woman who asked to work for medicine is about to become the person responsible for making the world immune to bioterrorism. Forever. 5 years after that day that changed everything, Emma stood in the world's most advanced laboratory, watching the final dose of the Taylor Universal vaccine being prepared for shipment. Max, now with graying fur but still full of energy, slept peacefully in his special bed beside Emma's work desk. At 12 years old, he had become the world's most famous dog, a symbol of the fight against bioterrorism and living proof that love can move mountains. Dr. Taylor, said Dr. Martinez, her deputy director, this is officially the last dose needed. With today's shipment to Bangladesh, we've successfully vaccinated the entire global population. Emma looked at the small vial representing 5 years of intensive work. 7 billion people. 7 billion people who will never need to fear biological weapons again. Emma smiled, thinking about the impossible journey that had taken her from a homeless woman begging for medicine for her dog to the person responsible for making all of humanity immune to bioterrorism. Dr. Martinez, Do you know what's the most incredible part of all this? What? Everything started because I loved a street dog more than my own safety. Dr. Martinez laughed. Max really did change the world. No, Emma corrected, petting Max, who woke up and rested his head on her hand. Max reminded me of who I really was. There's a difference. Her phone rang. It was an international video call, the closing ceremony of the global vaccination program. Dr. Emma Taylor, said the UN Secretary General on the screen, on behalf of humanity, we want to thank you. The Taylor Max program has saved our species from a threat that existed for decades. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. But I want to make clear that this success belongs to the entire international team that worked with me. And especially to the 47 veterinarians who never gave up on the truth. There are rumors that you're retiring now that the project is complete. Emma looked at Max, who watched her with those intelligent eyes that always seemed to understand exactly what she was thinking. I'm not retiring. I'm starting something new. What? A foundation to train young scientists not just in techniques, but in moral courage. So we never again have to depend on people willing to lose everything to do the right thing. After ending the video call, Emma and Max went out to the laboratory garden. It was a golden afternoon, and Emma sat on the grass watching Max chase butterflies as if he were still a puppy. Max, do you remember that day at the clinic? When you were almost dying and I thought I was going to lose you? Max came running back and sat beside her, putting his head in her lap. If someone had told me that day that you would become the world's most famous dog, and that I would save all of humanity, I would have thought it was hunger-induced delirium. Max wagged his tail, as if agreeing that life sometimes holds incredible surprises. Emma looked at the sky, where the first stars of the night were beginning to appear. Aurora, I know you're out there somewhere. Thank you for teaching me that when we love something unconditionally, we discover strengths we didn't know we had. A gentle breeze blew through the garden, and for a moment, Emma was certain she heard a familiar laughter carried by the wind. Max, she said, hugging the dog, I think our next adventure will be teaching other people that true love, whether for an animal, a person, or all of humanity, is the most powerful force in the universe. Max licked her face, and Emma interpreted this as total approval. That night, Emma fell asleep in her home with Max curled at her feet, dreaming of young scientists learning that competence without compassion is empty, but competence guided by love can literally save the world. And somewhere among the stars, Aurora watched with satisfaction, knowing her mission was complete. The simple woman who had asked for help for her dying dog had become the guardian of all humanity. The story that began with, "Please, my dog is dying, can I work for medicine?" had ended with proof that when we fight for those we love, we discover we're capable of fighting for everyone. 10 years after the day that changed everything, Emma stood at the Biodefense Heroes Memorial in Geneva, unveiling a very special statue. It wasn't a statue of herself, it was a statue of Max, sculpted in golden bronze, eternally preserving the street dog who had inadvertently saved humanity. 10 years ago, Emma told the crowd of 1,000 people gathered, this dog was dying, and I was a desperate woman begging for help. Today, Max is remembered as the animal who inspired the creation of the first universal defense against bioterrorism. In the front row, Dr. Williams, Dr. Sarah, and Dr. Martinez watched with tears in their eyes. Beside them, 47 veterinarians who now directed biodefense centers in their respective countries. But I want to talk about something few people know, Emma continued. Max wasn't just a victim of that conspiracy. He was the hero who gave me courage when I had lost all hope. Emma approached the statue and placed her hand on Max's bronze head. This memorial doesn't just celebrate a dog. It celebrates the power of unconditional love to make us better people than we thought possible. A girl in the audience raised her hand. Dr. Emma, where's the real Max now? Emma smiled, pointing to a special grassy area beside the memorial. Max is buried there, under that tree we planted together. He lived to be 17 years old, happy and healthy, knowing he had changed the world. Do you miss him? Every day. But I also know he's still with me in other ways. Emma pointed to 5 dogs of different breeds running through the memorial garden. These are Buddy, Luna, Charlie, Bella, and Rocky. All were rescued from criminal laboratories we shut down. They now live here at the memorial, reminding visitors that our mission is to protect the innocent. And do they help you with your work? They help me remember why the work matters. After the ceremony, Emma walked alone to Max's grave. The simple headstone read, "Max, the dog who saved the world, loved forever." Emma knelt and placed a golden rose identical to the one Aurora had left years ago on the grave. Max, today marks 10 years of our program. 0 deaths from bioterrorism worldwide. 17 criminal laboratories closed. 340 young scientists trained in biomedical ethics. A gentle breeze blew through the garden, making the tree leaves dance. And you know what else, Buddy? Remember Sophia, the 9-year-old girl who asked about Luna at the conference? She graduated as a veterinarian last week. The first generation of children inspired by our story is entering universities. Emma smiled, remembering all the letters she received from children around the world who had decided to study veterinary medicine or engineering because they wanted to be like Dr. Emma and Max. Aurora appeared again last month. Emma continued talking to Max, this time to help a boy in India whose parrot was being used to smuggle drugs. She never ages, Max. She keeps appearing whenever someone needs courage to protect an animal. Emma stood up and looked at Max's statue shining in the evening light. Sometimes I think you and Aurora are from the same cosmic family. Special beings sent to remind the rest of us that true love is the most powerful force in the universe. Buddy, one of the rescued dogs, approached and put his head in Emma's hand. Hi, Buddy. Are you taking good care of your siblings? Buddy wagged his tail and ran back to play with the other dogs. Emma took one last look at Max's grave, then at the statue preserving his memory, and finally at the laboratory where hundreds of scientists worked every day to keep the world safe. Thank you, Max, she whispered, for teaching me that when we fight for those we love, we discover we're capable of fighting for everyone. That night, Emma fell asleep in her home surrounded by the 5 rescued dogs, all curled around her like a chosen family. And in her dreams, she saw Max young again, running through endless fields beside Aurora, both watching over the world to ensure love and justice always prevailed. The simple woman who had asked to work for medicine had become the world's guardian of biodefense. But more importantly, she had proven that love for a single animal can inspire enough compassion to protect all life on Earth. And somewhere among the stars, Aurora smiled, knowing her mission was complete, but that there would always be more people needing to discover that love is the only truly invincible force. 15 years after that day at the veterinary clinic, Emma sat in her private garden, a place that had become a sanctuary for rescued animals from around the world. At 50 years old, she was recognized as the person who had eradicated bioterrorism from the planet, but what made her most proud were the 200 dogs, cats, birds, and other animals living happily on her property. Dr. Emma, shouted an excited voice. It was Sophia, now 24 years old and deputy director of the Max Foundation for Animal Protection. We got confirmations from the last university. Officially, all veterinary schools worldwide now include animal ethics as a mandatory subject. Emma smiled, watching Luna, Sophia's dog who had been saved from cancer 15 years earlier, playing with a new litter of rescued puppies. Sophia, do you remember when you were 9 years old and asked me if Luna would get better? I remember. You promised me we would do everything possible. And we kept that promise. Luna lived 14 happy years and now left these 5 puppies to continue her lineage. Sophia sat on the grass beside Emma. Dr. Emma, can I ask a question I've always been curious about? Of course. That woman, Aurora, who appeared the day you saved Max. Did you really never see her again? Emma looked at the evening sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. Not exactly, Sophia. But sometimes. Sometimes what? Sometimes, when I'm facing a very difficult decision, or when someone needs courage to do the right thing, I feel a familiar presence. As if someone were whispering, "You can do it," in my ear. Sophia nodded thoughtfully. Like Max used to do when you were sad. Exactly like Max used to do. Emma stood up and walked to a new monument that had been added to the garden, a crystal sculpture that captured sunlight and transformed it into rainbows dancing across the grass. Sophia, this sculpture arrived by mail a week ago. No sender, no card, no explanation. It's beautiful. It looks made of liquid light. And when the sun hits it at the right time, it projects a specific pattern on the grass. What pattern? Emma pointed to where the light was creating golden shapes on the grass. 5 connected stars. Like a constellation. Sophia looked at the light pattern with admiration. Aurora constellation? How do you know that name? Basic astronomy. I learned when I wanted to understand why you always look at the stars when talking about destiny. Emma laughed. You're very observant. Dr. Emma, do you think Aurora was human? Emma considered the question carefully. 15 years of reflection had led her to some interesting conclusions about her mysterious savior. Sophia, do you believe some people are sent specifically to change the course of history? After meeting you and your story? I believe anything. Then believe this, Aurora was exactly who needed to be there, when she needed to be there. Whether she was human, angel, or force of the universe, that matters less than the fact that she appeared. Sophia nodded. And do you think she's still out there, helping other people? Emma looked at the crystal sculpture, which at that moment was projecting particularly intense golden light. I'm absolutely certain. Somewhere in the world, right now, there's a desperate person asking for help to save someone they love. And Aurora is appearing to remind that person that they always had the power to be a heroine. Like she did with you. Like she did with me. That night, Emma took her daily walk through Max's memorial, a tradition she had maintained for 5 years. The golden bronze statue glowed under the moonlight, and Emma always ended the walk by talking to her best friend. Max, today marks 15 years since that day at the clinic. 0 deaths from bioweapons worldwide. 200 happy animals living here with us. 1,500 scientists trained in biomedical ethics. Emma sat at the base of the statue, as she always did. And you know what makes me most proud? Today I received a letter from an 8-year-old girl in Japan. She said she wants to be a veterinarian because she read our story and wants to save dogs like Dr. Emma saved Max. A shooting star crossed the sky at that moment, and Emma made a silent wish. Max, wherever you are now, I hope you know that the day you got sick wasn't just the day you were saved. It was the day you saved the entire world. Emma stood up and walked back to her house, where 5 rescued dogs waited for dinner. As she prepared their food, she thought about the extraordinary journey that had begun with a simple question. Please, my dog is dying. Can I work for medicine? That desperate question had transformed into the answer that protected all of humanity. And every night before sleeping, Emma looked at Max's photo on her bedside table and whispered the same phrase. Thank you for teaching me that saving those we love is just the first step towards saving everyone. The simple woman who had asked to work for medicine had discovered that when we fight for true love, the entire universe conspires to give us the power to change everything. And Max, wherever he was probably wagging his tail, proud of having been the dog who taught humanity that compassion is the only truly invincible force.